It's 2:10, and this is today's 830 WCCO, The Jack Rice Show. Welcome to the program. Very happy to have with me in studio U.S. Senate candidate Al Franken. Al, thank you for coming in.
Well, thank you, Jack. It's a pleasure.
I think about your race against Norm Coleman, against Senator Coleman, and I'll be very blunt with you. I'll be very straight with you. This guy who was not just left of center, he was left of center. I still remember him standing with Senator Wellstone saying, "This is the man." And then I saw him jump to the Republican Party, and then after 9/11, I saw him become not just right, he became extreme right. He voted for the president 95% of the time.
98% of the time the first year.
Okay, and then it dropped down a little bit, but it was still, and now he apparently is the guy in the middle. Now, what I'm trying to understand is, why aren't you beating this guy like a piñata?
I think we will beat him like a piñata. These campaigns have their rhythms, and you want me to start today?
Today, you know what? Today would be a great day.
Well, look, today he just announced that he won't release photographs of this apartment that he has in Washington that he's getting for $600 a month, and that he pays sometimes from a K Street fixer that on Capitol Hill, that he's clearly getting a sweetheart deal on. For your listeners who don't know about this, there's an ethics complaint against Senator Coleman based on an article that was released by the National Journal, a very reputable Capitol Hill magazine, that he's getting a deal on an apartment that probably would go for 2 or 3 times as much. He's paying $600 a month when he does pay for what's called an English basement apartment on Capitol Hill. And he denies anything. He says, "Oh no, just look on Craigslist and you'll see that what I'm paying is what people pay." And everybody did look on Craigslist, and the comparable apartment, the cheapest one, was you'd have to pay $950, but you had to share it with a woman whose boyfriend stays there 2 nights a week.
What's so wrong with that?
Well, you know what this is about? It's about Washington and the culture of corruption. And if you look at Senator Coleman's career in Washington and look at where he gets his money and look at how it affects your life, you can connect some dots here. He gets hundreds of thousands of dollars from big pharma, from big insurance, from big oil. Now, he voted to give, what'd you pay on your last gallon of gas?
It's sitting at $3.99 until it goes up to gosh knows what.
Okay. He voted to give billions of dollars of tax subsidies to oil companies that they don't need and we can't afford.
Well, I know that he has just come out saying we definitely need to drill off the coast of Florida, although Governor Christ is really quiet, kind of going, and Governor Bush before that said we will absolutely not do that, and he wants to drill off the coast of California, where Governor Schwarzenegger, by the way, both of those people are Republicans, has said, "I have no interest in that whatsoever, it's not going to happen."
Yeah, and the proposal has an opt-out by the states. So the fact of the matter is that there's plenty of oil to be drilled in leases that the oil companies already have. On the North Slope of Alaska, they have oil wells that they've capped, and they have leases, offshore leases. I'm not against offshore drilling. The president's father, George H.W. Bush, put a moratorium on this years ago, and this president reconfirmed it. And this is a phony solution. Norm Coleman hasn't done anything about energy until gas hit $4 a gallon. And now suddenly he has a solution which isn't a solution, because none of this oil that he's talking about will make a difference in the price of oil, according to the White House, until the year 2030. And by the most liberal estimations, but not for 10 years. And by the way out of this, there's no magic wand on oil. But we should be looking at whether there's been speculation. I mean, let's draw some other dots. Phil Gramm, yesterday, said that this is McCain's advisor. McCain denounced this, as he should have. But Phil Gramm, a Washington creature, said that America's a bunch of whiners and that we just have a mental recession. Well, Phil Gramm's rich, so he doesn't make dollars a gallon. But he doesn't know what's going on. And the reason he doesn't know what's going on is he's become Washington. And Norm Coleman is Washington now. And he gets his money from the special interests. Now, let's talk about the pharmaceuticals and the insurance companies. On Medicare Part D, he voted to prohibit Medicare from negotiating with the pharmaceuticals on the price of drugs. So your mother, your grandmother, pays more. Seniors pay billions of dollars more for their prescription drugs because of Norm Coleman's vote. But that's because he gets all this money from the insurance companies.
How do you...
And from the pharmaceuticals.
I should add, and thank you for that, how do you fight this fight for the U.S. Senate seat when you have Norm Coleman, who is about as flexible as Gumby is, and he is. I think everybody would acknowledge that, Republicans and Democrats. But you also have one other guy sitting out there in the weeds, and I frequently refer to him as the pirate. He has gained some 25% in some straw polls out there, and I'm talking about Jesse Ventura, who says, I'm going to run, and I'm going to take both of these pencil-headed geeks down.
Right.
How do you do that?
Well, we'll see what happens. He has to register, or file by Tuesday. So we'll see what the governor does. I mean, you know, in a two-way race, I plan to beat Senator Coleman. In a three-way race, I plan to beat Senator Coleman and former Governor Ventura.
On a sheet of paper in front of me, I wrote down Bill Hicks. The reason I wrote it down is because he's actually one of my favorite comedians.
He's a great comedian.
And he's a very
young.
Very young. Very, very smart guy. And I always thought to myself, comedians who think, who are deep thinkers, they understand things because they think about this and they're sharp people. I think if you like that.
Well, thanks. That's a compliment.
And yet at the same time, that very thing that you do is the very thing people beat you with. It's when you did the article in Playboy, talking about pornography and your son learning about bestiality. You know what? Is it outrageous? That was the point. It was supposed to be outrageous, but people use that against you. Yeah, what does that say?
The point of that, and I don't explain the jokes because otherwise I'll be explaining every joke I've ever told. But the point of that part of the thing was that there's stuff on the internet that our kids shouldn't see. That was actually, I was making a very conservative point. And so sometimes this stuff is...
So would you like to come out as a Republican now? Just curious.
No, I was saying that we should really, you know, look, it kills me that people have used this stuff I've done in a way to portray me as something that I'm really not. And some people legitimately are offended by just anything in Playboy or by some of the words or stuff like that, and I feel bad about that. But this isn't who I am. You know, this came out right before the convention down in Rochester, and a lot of people were thinking, oh, well, boy, this might be trouble for Al. I won that convention on the first ballot. And I think the reason I did was that the process, the endorsement process, means that these delegates get to know you over a year and a half, 2 years. And they knew me. They know who I am. I'm a husband. They know Franny. I've been married 32, it'll be 33 years in September, to the best person I know. And they know Franny. Franny is an enormous asset. And they know my daughter. My daughter has been campaigning for me for about 7 months now. And look, Minnesota deserves a senator who is not going to say things that will make them feel uncomfortable. But there are people in Washington who need to be made to feel uncomfortable. And I promise to do that.
Al, stay with me. When we come back, if we look at the numbers, you are trailing a bit. Mm-hmm. What is it that people don't know? What is it that people should know in order to change that in your mind? When we come back, that's what I want to know about. Al Franken is my guest. He's running for the U.S. Senate.